Hello and welcome to Ceramic Fun Time with Mr. Richards. I'm Mr. Richards. Today we're going to be building a small slab box. This will be done in two phases. So we're going to talk about phase one, which is going to be rolling and cutting the slab. For today's phase you're going to need a rolling pin and two guide sidebars, which control the thickness of the slab that we're going to roll. You can get different thickness bars for different thicknesses of slab. We're going to use these thin ones today. So I'm going to set these up here. I've already kneaded my clay and it's ready to go. So what I want to do is roll it out into a flat slab. I'm going to start this by just sort of smashing it into a pancake. Just sort of getting a start on my flattening. I'm going to be rolling 6 sides today. They're this large. I've cut a little template. I'm doing a little cube box. So what I want to do is roll it out this direction. I want to make sure it's this width at least. The clay is going to stretch the direction that you're rolling it. So as I roll, it's going to stretch this way, away from my body. So I'll go ahead and start rolling it here. As you can see, I push down all the way, and the clay is rolled to the thickness of these guide slabs, or these guide slats that I have on each side. I want to make sure it doesn't stick to my rolling pin. I'm going to roll it out flat like so. So what I'm going to do from here is just cut as many of these squares as I can. Here I'm using a ceramics knife that I got in the throwing kit. You can also use something as simple as a metal or even plastic butter knife like I have here, your needle tool, or your wood tool. Anything that'll cut the clay. I'll lay this out again. I'm going to be able to get just enough for 2 slabs here. I want to work quickly. While the clay is in this slab form, it's going to dry out really quickly. So if I want to reuse any of the scrap here, I'm going to have to get it balled up again pretty fast. Right. So I have 2 squares now. They're laid out. So take this clay and wedge it back together, or knead it back together, and continue that process. I'd probably add some more to it because obviously this isn't going to be enough to roll out much more slab. I'm going to store these 2 pieces. So to store my pieces, I need to have a bat and some newspaper. I'm going to take my bat here. I'm going to take first slab off the wedging board here and set it down flat on the bat. Try to flatten it out. Make sure it's not wrinkled in any way. I'm going to take a sheet of newspaper. I've got a quarter sheet here. I'm going to fold this in half and then in half again. I'll lay a sheet of newspaper down between the slabs. Now I'm going to peel up and lay down the second slab. Again, I want to flatten this out. By stacking my slabs on top of each other, I help encourage them to be flat by adding the weight of each subsequent slab on top of the ones that have already been laid down. So at this point I'd get another lump of clay, roll it out, continue this process as I've done here until I had 6 squares of clay, all stacked up with newspaper in between. Once you have the 6 squares, you're going to bag them on top of the bat, close up the bag so that the opening is underneath the bat, and set them on your shelf until the next session. This will allow them to become leather hard. They'll be a lot easier to work with because they won't be flopping around. So I'm going to make the rest of mine off camera, and then I'm going to let them sit, but I will see you in a few seconds, but for me it'll be tomorrow. Ooh, time traveling. So hold tight and talk about the next step. Oh hey, I'm back. It's not tomorrow yet, but I thought of something else. If you wanted to add some texture to your slab, this would be an excellent time to do it. So here's some example texture. I'm just going to lay that down and roll it on into my slab, pressing it in slightly. Then when I lift it off, we'll get a cool texture effect. Sticking. Careful of that. You might let your clay rest a little while before you apply the texture. This clay is too wet and sticky. It's kind of sticking and it ripped here. That's what I get for being in a hurry, I suppose. Oh yeah. So maybe before you let it set to leather hard, but give it a few minutes after it's rolled out to have a little rest so it's a little dry on top. Here we go. Cool. And then I'll cut for my template out of there. See, I can add things like this, whatever piece of material I have. Also, one of my slabs from the last rollout, I'm going to try doing some flowers that I just got from outside. See how that does. Arrange those. Set my guides down on the side here. And gently roll those in. I have one more square, but I'm not going to do anything to that because that's going to be the bottom of the pot. Cool. Alright, so you might try that. Now I'm really going to go away for a day. But for you, it'll be mere seconds. We'll see you soon in the future. Hello, this is Mr. Richards. For you, it's been mere seconds, but for me, it's been an entire 24 hours. So I'm going to remove my slab here, which I've allowed to set overnight. I'm going to build it into a box. So my slab is stiffened up a little bit. Should be a little bit easier to work with today. Here are my sides that I've textured. And my top. And my bottom. Alright. So, I'm going to set these sides on the bottom and using slip attach them, make them into a cube shape. The thing is that because of the width of these sides, each of these sides is a little bit too long. So I'm going to have to remove some material from each of them. So I'm going to have to remove just the width of a side on each piece. So what I'm going to do here to do that is set my slab on top and then just cut a strip off of each of my sides here. Move these over so you can see. I'm going to use my ceramic knife to do this, but you could also just use a needle tool or a wood tool or whatever you happen to have. I'm just going to set this at the edge of my side and slice along that. I'm just going to repeat that for each side. Alternatively, if you didn't want to do it this way, you could cut two widths from two of the sides and leave two of the sides uncut. That'd be fine as well. Doesn't really matter. Sort of just whatever you want to do. Okay. I'm going to take these little strips that I cut off and set them aside. I'm going to use those in a moment. Get the bottom piece back over here. Oops. And I'll be able to put my box together alternating sides. So what I'm going to do now is, that's a good idea, test fit these. If they're close enough, that's fine. I can trim them later. I'll just lay them out the way they were. I'm going to go ahead and use some slip today that I've pre-mixed. You can also just score and slip these together. Your choice. Depends whether you want to make the slip or not. For this project, you'd probably go either way, really. So I'm going to apply the slip to each of the edges that I need to before I start trying to assemble this. It's going to sort of rely on the sides to help support the rest of the box. So it'll be useful if I have everything ready to go so I can put it all together at once. Okay, so I've applied it to this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, so that my pieces can go in sort of an alternating fashion. Stick this one up. Then I'm going to apply this one. This one. And finally this one. So if we look at this from above, we can see this edge sort of sticks out into this one, and then this one sticks out across here, and this one sticks out across here, and so on. They sort of alternate into a reticulated pattern. I don't really know if that's reticulated. Alright, so those are the basics of my box. Next I'm going to attach the lid. So again, I'm going to use my slip. I want to make sure this is nice and flat, so I can sort of trim any excess off if I didn't get it super even when I did it the first time. So that I can get a nice fit. Before I attach that, I might want to go in with my brush and my slip, or I could potentially also use a wood tool or your finger or my finger. It'd be weird if I was using your finger to complete my project. I want to seal up those cracks that are going to be inside of the box. So now I'm going to apply slip on the top edge of the box here. And just to the outside edge of my lid. Get this so it fits. I'm just going to press down a little bit on each edge. Alright, so now what I want to do is remove the excess slab on all of these edges where the slabs are joining. I can also seal that up with a wood tool or my finger. Just make sure that all the seams on my box are sealed. I'm going to add a little slip on there. I've done texture on my sides. I want to try not to disturb that texture any more than is absolutely necessary. Alright, so I'm going to take a few minutes to seal this all up, and then I will turn this back on and film the next step. Alright, so I've sealed up my box here. Next I'm going to talk about cutting off the lid and attaching some lips so that it will be able to sit properly. So I'm going to do to start this off is just mark maybe an inch down on my box at each of the corners. So here. There we go. And what that's for is so when I'm cutting the top off, I have sort of an area to shoot for as I cut across, and I don't end up cutting a seam that doesn't meet up. So now what I'm going to do is just use my knife, and you could use a needle tool or a butter knife or something for this, and just cut through the side here. Just my mark a little bit and slice off the lid. I'm just going to continue that same way all the way around. Oops. My walls are starting to fall apart, but I can repair those now. So I'll clean those up before I fire. I'll just show you the rest of what you need to do. So I'm going to scoot this back over here, bring my lid over. What I want to do with my lid now is I want to add just a little ridge on the inside of this lid that will hold it in place when it's sitting on the box. So I'm cutting this first to smooth it out, and I can clean that up more as I go. Taking one of my strips from earlier that I cut off the sides, I'm just going to smash that down a little bit. And the reason I'm smashing it is to not only thin it out a little bit, but also to make it a little bit wider. And I'm going to try to flatten the edge. So I'm going to put one of these on the inside of each side of the lid here. So I'll mark the width I need, and then I can use my slip, paint that in here, and get it pretty good, and then attach in the side, press it in there. After I get that on there and I let it sit to the point where it's sort of leather hard, I can come in with a tool and maybe clean that up a little bit. Continue in the same way all the way around, just measuring out my piece. And slipping it into place. pinch that off. It's probably better if you cut it. A little trim, not quite fitting. Alright, so after I get to this point, I'll clean things up a little bit. I may try to seal the edges between these ridges. There's little seams at each corner. I may try to seal those up, smooth things out. After it's leather hard, you can carve things away. Want to even out the top of the box. All of that's just sort of detail work you can figure out how to do on your own. I want to fire this with the lid on to ensure that it fits properly, and you might do a test fit once your pieces start to stiffen up a little bit. If they get too hard and you need to make adjustments, it's going to be a problem because you're not going to be able to move the clay anymore. It's going to lose its flexibility. So you want to make sure that everything fits together before it gets too hard. Conversely, you don't want it to be too sticky, so you're just going to have to judge where you're at and try to figure out the best way to take care of that. Alright, I think that's it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.